Hello there, you 1 million awakening wonders. 1 million on Rumble now, Gareth. Can you believe it? 1 million awakening wonders here on Rumble. Thank you for joining us. And if you're one of the 6.3 million on YouTube, the whole show will only be available on Rumble. And populism is one of the things we are discussing today. How come every time a popular movement emerges, it is discredited? What is this tendency towards divide and conquer? The whole show will be available on Rumble for the first 15, 20 minutes or so. We'll be there on YouTube. Give you a little taste. See if you like it. See if you want to join the Rumble revolution.
Tease, aren't you?
Well, that's right. We tease you with restricted speech, and then we reward you with the sweet taste of free speech. Talking about Trump, talking about populism, anti-populism. We're talking to Stella Assange. She's coming in on here to talk about Julian Assange and why everyone is talking about Julian Assange again. And when I say everyone, I mean independent thinkers, independent journalists, people that are interested in freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of information. Why has Julian Assange's name suddenly returned to the lips of people interested in freedom, and why won't the mainstream discuss him? Also, we've got Dr.
What? One person will.
Who's that?
Tucker.
Oh, Tucker, the old racist. That's a joke. Dr. Rhonda Patrick will be on the show as well, and she's talking about the benefits of heat, sweet heat, and cold. On our deep dive look at the news, we'll be talking about Raccoon Dog. Raccoon Dog, was it you? Did you pandemic us so hard we couldn't go out of our houses? Did you pandemic us right in the small business? Did you pandemic us, Raccoon Dog, right in the wealth transfer? We're also going to look at that fantastic meet and greet moment where you see what happens when the highest paid public servant in the world meets the public. It don't go well. And also, when an accredited scientist has a conversation about science with an ordinary member of the public, it's extraordinary to see. This is one of my favourite things I've seen for a long while. But we're going to start now with that other hero of the pandemic, Boris Johnson, who during the pandemic was partying like it was 2019 still, the early part of it. Of course, Boris Johnson famously claimed that he didn't go to any parties. Then when pressed, he said he did go to some parties, but when he was at them, he didn't know that they were parties that he was at. Now his most senior advisor has revealed that he must have known that he was at a party. Johnson knew garden event was a party because I told him, said Dominic Cummings. And if you can't relate to that because you're an American person, don't feel left out, because Gavin Newsom was also caught without a mask, a maskless party, although you know those guys go to parties with masks as well. Eyes wide shut style Illuminati, yo. I'm joking while we're still on YouTube. Once we get over to Rumble, we'll start talking about secret societies, won't we? By Jove, we shall. It's interesting because all of these members of elite organisations, old Etonians posing in government, Gavin Newsom partying without a mask while telling you that you have to do that, are still benefiting from their inside connections. Gavin Newsom recently applauded the response to the Silicon Valley Bank collapse, saying, you know, that's the right thing to do, without revealing that he had $250,000 in there. Isn't that extraordinary? Isn't that just like an establishment figure to praise the actions of the government, claiming he supports their ideals, in this case when he is literally financially invested in the venture? At least 3 of the California governor's wine companies are held by SVB, and a bank president sits on the board of his wife's charity. California Governor Gavin Newsom praised the Biden administration's decision to intervene on behalf of Silicon Valley Bank clients. He didn't reveal that they held $250,000 in deposits in that same bank.
Companies.
Why does he even
in control
that?
of California?
I do the wine on the side. Yeah, this is just a hobby. When I'm not governing with real moral diligence and really practicing what I preach, what I like to do is run a booze factory. He would have been doing it in Prohibition. He likes the moonshine. He likes the bathtub gin. It's another case of do as I say, not as I do. If you're not a member of our locals community yet, join it right now. Then you can communicate and participate in this conversation, because what we believe is that a new movement is being born before before our very eyes, as we all witness the end of the old order, as we witness the establishment floundering, unable now to control our ability to communicate, doubling down on smearing dissenters, surveillance and censorship, there is a new populism emerging. Donald Trump, of course, is one of the figures of populism who many people disagree with on many, many issues, but I know loads of you love him, and he's still awaiting arrest. That goes on. He represents a certain type of energy and an emergent new political force that may yet be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Because if you look now for a moment to politics in the Netherlands, the politics of Holland, the farm protest movement has just won parliamentary seats. Like the farm protest that we've talked about a lot on this show with Vandana Shiva, we've talked about the farm protests in Sri Lanka, the farm protests in India, the emergent soil movement. And the reason we're interested in this is precisely because it is a response to globalism that is truly global, that cannot be dismissed as racism, but that will not stop the mainstream media trying to condemn it as somehow right-wing and racist. In fact, even with The Guardian reporting on this story, don't they say, yeah, has won the support of far-right populist parties? Look, they attempt to smear it. There's been, in the recent election, let me just read from The Guardian's text, a new populist party surfing a wave of rural anger. A horrible wave. There'll be manure, spit, there'll be all sorts of things in a wave of rural anger that you wouldn't want to surf on. Government environmental policies has emerged as the big winner in Dutch provincial elections. With almost 90% of the votes, the BBB is now the biggest bloc in the Senate. Now, as well as reporting on it, The Guardian, mainstream media, of course, don't miss the opportunity to smear this populist movement because they think they're better than you, because they think they're cleverer than you, that they think that they need to parent you through politics to guide you with instruction, haughtiness and condemnation rather than be part of a conversation, which is what we believe. We believe that you will teach us, that we'll tell you our version of the truth, you'll respond to it, and together we'll be in a dialogue with the possibility of redemption, forgiveness, with the possibility of altering our opinion, amending, adapting, finding new relationships. But that's not the way they go in the mainstream. The BBB, which has won the support of far-right and populist parties internationally, claims the problem has been exaggerated. So there you go. I mean, it's just, for me, it seems like what they do first of all is look for a reason to shut down populism and then bolt it on to any movement that's
it's not as if it's come from nowhere, is it, Russ? I mean, the Dutch government, this was in response to, and the catalyst for this was the Dutch government offering to buy up, and this was through forced buyouts, 3,000 farms. And so obviously there's a big movement that's been spawned from this. But even in the research that we've done, because obviously they're saying that these are big polluter problems, I think they call them peak polluter farms. But just in the research from mainstream media, you find the richest 1% of the global population use 2 times as much carbon as the poorest 50% over the last 25 years. In terms of the energy companies recently, they've all made record profits in 2022 and 2023. ExxonMobil, Shell, BP and Chevron are all identified among the highest emitting investor-owned companies since 1988.
And they still receive subsidies, and they never come for elite interests. They always come for popular interests, populare interests, the interests of the people. Even when condemning in particular the type of fertilizer and stuff that these Dutch farmers are using, which may be environmentally harmful, Bill Gates, who's a king of climate change as well as international king of medicine, I believe elsewhere in his format and within his portfolio literally uses the same fertilizers that the Dutch farmers are being penalized for using. Is that true,
Yeah,
Gareth?
so this is from US Right to Know. We've actually spoken to them. They're brilliant, do amazing investigation. So in his book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, Gates discussed his plans to model African food system upon India's Green Revolution, which moves farmers towards ever larger and less diverse farming operations that rely on pesticides and climate-harming chemical fertilizers. This is something he's been promoting in Africa for the last 15 years, which has not gone down too well with a lot of the people in Africa. But, you know, it's one rule for one and one rule for evidently these farmers in Netherlands.
When Bill Gates uses that fertilizer, it knows that Bill Gates is behind it, and it immediately causes a lot less climate change. But when it's a Dutch farmer or a Sri Lankan farmer or an Indian farmer or a farmer somewhere on the continent of Africa, they bungle it. Do you see what I mean? The reason is they think they're better than us. They think they're cleverer. They They think that we don't understand. They think our traditions, our heritage, our new alliances, our ability to accept difference, our ability to come together with new alliances, it's an impossibility. You're not like them. You're not clever like they are. Hit me up right now in the comments with examples from your own life of this haughtiness, this superciliousness, this ongoing patronizing condemnation that rains down from on high. We've got so many examples of this. We've got an example that I'm just longing to share is the clip that's gone viral. I just want to have a look at the first bit of it. You've already seen by now, because let's face it, it's mostly you that educate us on this stuff. Yeah, that's right. It's mostly you that educates us on this stuff. Like the moment where Fauci confronts an ordinary family about the facts of the pandemic. And this is so heartening for me to watch, to see an ordinary person convey their concerns, which have subsequently proven to be legitimate and demonstrable, provable. We'll go into greater depth on this story when we're no longer on YouTube, in a few minutes, I mean. Because there are some things that we're going to say that are now empirically demonstrable that are still unbelievably against the guidelines. But you're going to love watching this. Let's have a look at that clip right now, please.
I heard that it doesn't cure it, and it doesn't stop you from getting it.
No.
So
on the very, very, very rare.
Like, already, if you think of the narrative, remember for a moment Don Lemon saying, you should shame the unvaccinated. You should shame them. Already, what that...
Leave them behind.
Leave them behind. It's astonishing, isn't it? And Fauci is about to say, on the very rare occasions, we now know...
On YouTube.
YouTube. Can't say it yet. This is why you've got to join us on Rumble. The link's in the description, because what we've got... You know, you're going to love this. Every single moment in this exchange, our team, our diligent, hard-working and brilliant team back there, have found a scientific study from legit sources, like the British Medical Journal, those conspiracy theorists over at the Lancet and Johns Hopkins University, that prove that everything that woman and her partner or whoever that other person in the house was, I don't want to make any assumptions what goes on in that household, everything they say is scientifically true. Everything Fauci says is wrong. That's not me saying that. It's follow the science, but inconveniently, science that supports the rights of the people, not science that can be used to double down on establishment centralized power. Let's give Fauci another few moments in the sun, though. Although he would never admit that the sun's good for you, because they can't sell you that yet.
A chance that you do get it, even if you're vaccinated, you don't even feel sick. It's like you don't even know you got infected.
Yeah, let us know in the comments.
He's busking at that point, isn't he?
You know, this vaccine, you won't even know you've taken it, except there'll be a spring in your step, and you might feel a fluttering in your heart. 30% more like, hey, join us on Rumble in a moment or so. Because I suppose what we're talking about more broadly, the theme of this show, before we get to Stella Assange, partner of Julian Assange, of course, is why is it that there's so much divide and conquer? Why is it that there's so much condemnation? I mean, you've got to see how the Dutch news reported on the victory of this Dutch farmer movement. Like, even though when they're talking about unbridled joy, listen to the level of enthusiasm mustered up by the mainstream media reporter. Have a listen now.
Unbridled joy for Caroline van der Plas.
Unbridled joy, like when I was making love last night. Do it more. Do it more. I'm on the brink. Not yet, not yet. Relax, don't do it.
As her party shook up the Dutch political landscape on Wednesday evening. Founded just 4 years ago, the BBB is now projected to be the largest party in the Senate.
Obviously, this issue has to be drained of all enthusiasm
Exactly.
Because issues like this, a movement like this, is precisely what can change the world. Don't let them tell you it's not possible to change the world. Don't let them tell you it's not possible to change your own life. Don't let them tell you new systems ain't possible. They rely on us losing our ability to imagine new worlds. They rely on us losing our spirit, darkening us down. That's why they're promoting bad food. That's why they're promoting dumb stuff on your screen. Right.
Yeah, he resents it, doesn't he? He resents having to deliver that.
I don't like having to give you this news, but it turns out that ordinary people won't just do as they're told. Look at her nail varnish. It's garish and vulgar. She shouldn't be wearing green. Green fingers and thumbs in the agricultural world. Not like this. Not on your Nelly. I'm going now home to my house to make love. I'm now going to move elegantly from that quote and that rather puerile bit of a tomfoolery, to a quote from Immanuel Kant on the idea of divide and conquer. In Perpetual Peace, a philosophical sketch by Kant, Appendix 1, divide et impera, is the third of 3 political maxims, the others being fact et excusa, act now, make excuses later. We see that in the political realm. And si fascisti nega, if you commit a crime, deny it. Kant refers to this tactic in Appendix 1 of his Perpetual Peace when describing the traits of political moralists: divide and conquer, keep people divided, promote difference in the culture, promote the idea that we're different from one another, that we have different interests, that you could never get on with a person who's wearing a baseball cap like that, you could never get on with a person who's using a pronoun like that, when ultimately you have more in common, we have more in common with one another than we could ever have in common with the rarefied small group of elite institutions and individuals that ultimately determine the global agenda. Some Indian historians, this is how it is in practice, such as politician, I hope I'm saying this right, Shashi Tharoor, assert that the British Raj frequently use this tactic of divide and conquer to consolidate their rule and prevent the emergence of the Indian independence movement, citing Lord Elphinstone, who said that divide et impera was the old Roman maxim and it should be ours. And of course, we mention this now to show our largely American audience that we, the British, acknowledge that many of the bad ideas that are currently being used by the American corporatist regime were invented by the British corporatist colonial imperialist regime.
It's interesting, isn't it, with the farmers and like coming back to like where we just came from with this, the kind of dismissive attitude of populist parties. And I know even in The Guardian, the kind of reporting of it saying that how fickle it is, the kind of supporting of populist parties. But when it relates to farmers and food, I mean, what could be more popular than food? Like, we all eat it. Like, if we lose these farmers and we lose these farms and abilities to, you know, eat food, that I think that is worthy of being a populist movement.
Food is popular because if you don't eat none, you're gonna die. And they always attempt to ally these ideas with, I think, notions and schematics that we all acknowledge are wrong. Misogyny is wrong, anti-Semitism is wrong, racism is wrong. We should be looking to forge alliances that are not based on our cultural identity. We should accept people's right to identify culturally in diverse and wonderful ways, whether that's traditional, old school, Christian, 2.4 kids, or progressive. We should say, that's up to you. These are the conversations I'm interested in having. We've got to move beyond them. Like in our conversation with Glenn Greenwald the other day, once we've established a meaningful system of actual democracy, once we've got systems where we can control our resources and be individually free, then we can have a conversation about, hey, how do you prefer this, and what, you know, and are we going to leave each other alone, and what are, you know, we don't want a centralized authority, corporate or state, involved in these aspects of our life. We want as much freedom as possible, not as little. Gareth, do you think it's time for us to skip over to being exclusively available on Rumble? So I'm really determined to show, because as well as everything else, as well as being almost a kind of new Rosetta Stone for many of the deceptive tactics deployed during the pandemic period, many of the errors made, much of the misreporting, the censorship, the opportunity to surveil, it demonstrates in real time too the attitude that undergirded it, one of supremacy, one of domination, one of condescending, of speaking down to people parentally, and it entirely backfires because the family being addressed, who are conveniently a family of colour, are able to sort of intuitively, instinctively, or as a result of education, plainly in some of the arguments, rebut everything that Fauci is saying, to in the end, Fauci and his crew just walk off, weary and exhausted. I don't know why they're so tired. I mean, I don't know what could have contributed to that. We're going to come off YouTube now. We're going to be exclusively on Rumble. There's a link in the description. Remember, we're talking to Stella Assange in a minute as well. So join us on the other side, on the side of righteousness, inclusivity, absolute acceptance of diversity, end of all hatred, inclusivity and love. Love! Let love be our rule. See you on the other side. Let's have a look at this clip together now. Right now, what